and I'm very pleased to welcome John and his panel to the stage. Please put your hands together.
I think this is one of the hottest topics out there at the moment, and in a moment we're going to be discussing not just, well, both models that you've just seen really. It's the private label custom build television set where you find an OEM partner and then you go to market with your brand on the television, so it's your TV, probably your OS maybe. The other model, as we've seen with Lennart, is where there's a retail television that's probably going into the market anyway. The television maker is the brand, and then the operator sits on top of that as the operator application. So this discussion is about both of those models. And what I'm going to do now is ask each of our panelists in turn just to introduce themselves and just give a very 30-second summary on what they think of this market and how they would characterize it. So, Chem, welcome, and let's start with you.
Good morning, John. So I'm Assayag. I'm working for Orange. I'm driving the so-called home services domain, which is about TV and entertainment, but also Wi-Fi connectivity, smart home, and I'm focusing on technology and innovation topics. What I can say maybe about smart TVs and STB-less strategies, that smart TV at the same time is a must-have and a complement. And maybe I will get into the details later.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm Lennart again, and as I said in my presentation, I think the HbbTV operator approach is not only just for us, it was suitable for us. It might not be suitable for every kind of operator, but there will be coming more. We already know that there are some close discussions to do also an HbbTV operator application. So I think it is, for some of the operators, a quite good approach to do so.
Great. Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter Fox. I'm a Key Account Director for Consult Red. We're a 300-strong technical consultancy with various clients within the media and broadband industry, solving their technical problems. I think this is a very interesting challenge for a lot of our customers and clients. I think it's more a case of a when rather than an if, I think, in terms of going to an operator TV. I think, as I think we've already said, very much a complement to existing solutions, I think.
Okay, Alejandro?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Alejandro Casal. I've been working at KPN in IPTV and multimedia departments for 25 years. My current role, I am IPTV Innovation Product Owner and Architect. About your question, John, so for the relief of STB OEMs, I think the set-top box is not dead and will not be dead soon. I think we have been discussing this topic for the last 10 years. You know, John, we've been in the industry for a long time. I don't think the set-top box will be dead, and I think the connectivity is just, as Chem says, also an alternative to the set-top box.
Great. Anette?
Hi, my name is Anette Schaefer. I'm an industry analyst and interim manager and consultant to the industry. And that's a very great topic we discussed this morning. And I think we just saw from the Foxtel example, it's not one thing than the others. It's a TV and a device. But what it does, it changes an OpEx or a CapEx into an OpEx situation. And it gives you probably as an operator more freedom to launch more services instead of having a huge investment into devices. So I think that's one of the key drivers that let operators rethink and maybe considering a set-top box-less approach to their TV offerings.
Okay, so Anette, do you think, when you say turn it into an OpEx situation, do you mean because you're removing the cost, you're selling the box, the television afterwards to somebody else?
Correct.
Or?
I mean, it's you selling the TV set to the consumer, you're renting it out, or it's similar like a set-top box. But I think it goes over a longer lifetime value, and you're increasing the customer lifetime value with that. But also, it's a great tool to prevent churn and to upsell the customer and selling more services.
Okay, and Alejandro, I think everyone seems to be agreed that this is not about getting rid of set-top boxes, which would, like you say, back in the early days when we talked about, STB-less stuff, it was all about getting it off the balance sheet. You know, it was like a hot coal in CEOs' hands. They didn't want set-top boxes anymore, but that's not what we're seeing here.
Yeah, I think as Anette says, so if you are partnering with a retail TV device, obviously there can be also advantages in terms of capex. But I think the main drive for this is about addressing customer needs, about segmentation. We've been also listening yesterday in several sessions that the one-size-fits-all doesn't work anymore. So it's about segmentation, about addressing different customer needs. So I think this set-top box-less and connected TV fits more in the part of addressing this customer need.
Yeah. And Chem, do you agree with that? It's about segmenting your market. Is that an opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's about user experience and customer retention. I think, if we think about Foxtel, Sky, or Comcast, their core business is TV. Our core business is not TV as Orange. We are a telco, a connectivity operator, and TV is part of the services that we are bundling with connectivity, but this is not our core business. So what is critical for us is deliver the best experience, find ways to get loyalty and retention, and I think segmentation is part of kind of this new strategy. Because, for instance, we see that young people consume TV and content in general differently from the oldest. If you look at live consumption, for instance, if you look at the broadcast channel in France, for instance, the average age is like 55 or more than that. So you need to find different ways to address, like young people who are going to consume platforms, gaming, etc. And typically, having an application on a smart TV is one of the ways to reach them.
Okay, so are you talking about being an app amongst apps at this point? So because those are the two models, you could be an app amongst many apps, or you can be the dominant app, or the operator application, which is the first screen that you see, which is the HD Plus.
So this is why I said it's a must-have and a complement. So we must be there, but it's a complement because our main kind of touch point with the consumers is still a set-top box. Yeah, okay. So we are offering Smart TV, an application on Smart TV on top of the set-top boxes. Okay. For some market segments, typically like our digital brand, you might get rid of the set-top box, but this is really for a specific market segment. But in general, for the mass market, the application is coming on top of the set-top box.
Okay, but in a home, let's suppose it's an Orange home where you wanted, if you were interested in doing an operator TV set, so it would take the place of the set-top box. You would have to be the application, the dominant application, even if you did it with a partner. So it was a Samsung box television. You would have to be the first screen somebody sees, the screen that you always come back to. So
this is not what we are doing, but I would say that obviously if we want to go this way, we want still to be the main kind of interface to the consumers, because otherwise there is no point of trying to do that. But again, this is not the strategy that we are pursuing today.
Yeah. Okay. And Peter, Sky never talk about this. When they talk about why they did it, it's very much about the user experience, and of course there's a great motivation. The thing that's never said is that it's basically put them in front of the television set UXs, which makes them in a much safer position in future when there's all this other stuff happening. I mean, how important is that?
Well, I think for a traditional pay TV operator, it is all about remaining relevant. I think the danger with a lot of the what we've seen with the OEMs talking about the TV market and the TVOS is they're able to provide so many of the services that the average consumer takes, and the question is if you don't have content, how do you remain relevant? I think you can remain relevant with in an app among apps strategy if you have some content that is compelling to the end consumer. But if you don't have any content and you're just aggregating, then you need to be that central position, front of house, if you like, in order to remain needed by your customer. And a route for super aggregation, I guess, is where I think we all talk about that.
Yeah. How many operators do you think could do the Sky model where they kind of custom build, it's to their own specification with an OEM partner?
I think they're few and far between. I think it requires a huge infrastructure in order to generate something from scratch. I think it's a far more of an opportunity to partner with other smaller operators together, or operators together working with an OEM, or to work with an OEM directly and do some kind of branding or equity share in that model. I think classic scenarios are thinking about a lot of operators have got a puck, say, and shipping a puck in a jiffy bag is very different from a 65-inch TV on the back of a lorry. And I think that whole kind of logistics chain is often forgotten. I think so. I think there are few.
Okay, and Lennart, you noted that you didn't have a UX before, now you do. What difference has that made to your business? Because that seems like quite a big gain.
So one important thing is, of course, we see also how the end users are interacting with our services, how they, the user journeys they use on the TV to get to the different channels. We see which channels, of course, they are watching and so on. So this is an important point of data that we can now reach from the end customers. And also regarding the future, it means that we have an point of interaction where we can provide features like, for example, this UHD switch. This is then what we can directly offer to the end user, or with direct media jump to media libraries from the other broadcasters and so on. So I think this is at the end enriches our services for the end user and provides a better experience for our TV platform.
Okay.
So
and
it's a key fact.
okay. You started to explain how your relationship works with the TV maker, who controls what. Can you give us a bit more detail on that? So if I'm in your guide and then I go off to the broadcaster application via Red Button or HbbTV, do I come back to you afterwards? And if I wanted to get Netflix, where do I go for that?
Yeah. So you can, so for instance, so if you press the guide button, for instance, on the TV remote control, it leads to our guide once the operator application has installed. If you press then the home button or a Netflix button, it opens the Netflix application, so there is no conflict. If you close the Netflix application, go back to live TV, then our UI elements are again displayed. So we are in the element that is the, let's say, the knife navigator, but of course the whole home portal and which applications are there or which other buttons on the remote control leading to these applications is full up to the manufacturer.
Okay. So it always comes back to you, even if I went out to Netflix, go into Netflix, watch Netflix, exit Netflix.
Yes. At that moment, if you go back to linear TV, live TV, then you are back in our application.
Back to you. Okay. And Annette, is that a default expectation for what you have to get if you're going to put a TV into the market as an operator TV? You'll be that default application. The first thing everyone says.
Yeah, question to me.
Yeah. So Alejandro, I mean, is that what you would expect? If KPN did this, that would be the benchmark.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Last year we launched, for instance, our first Android TV operator TV set-top box. So there we have exactly that experience. So the apps are integrated by our part of the Android TV ecosystem. As an operator, we control the user interface. We can deep link into the different apps, but the user is always coming back to a user interface. So the user knows what to expect. They have a consistent experience, and they are always coming back to the KPN user interface that they know.
Okay. I mean, for the pay TV operators who are trying to be super aggregators, it's probably slightly different to Lennart's situation in that you would probably want Netflix and Max to be in your sort of your sphere. So would you expect Netflix to be inside your operator application, or could it be outside, even if you partnered with a television maker?
Yeah, so the application will be, I think, outside, so it doesn't necessarily need to be within the operator application, but from an operator perspective, we would need to do the whole super aggregation stuff. So we need to, for instance, deep link into the application. We need to be able to manage the subscription for the customers, that they can easily subscribe and unsubscribe to different services.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have thought though that you would have your operator app would be the main home screen, and then everything would then feed from that. So you always have the access to the information of who's using what, where, and the statistics and information there, and they're always coming to your landing page rather than perhaps being your TV. You click on a button to get the KPN service. Surely the idea is that your services are front and center, complementing Netflix in a row.
Yeah, exactly. So the user has always the choice to go to the UI of the Smart TV, for instance, and launch Netflix or launch Disney+. In our case, we also have buttons on the remote control for the user to directly go to a Netflix or a Disney+ application. So there is always that choice, but I think the user is also looking for a way to discover content, not just launching an app, but being inspired, getting recommendation on content she or he might like to watch this evening, not just launching an app.
I think from the user experience, that's a good point. You have one bill, right? It's more convenient. You also control, as an operator, the customer relation. But I think it's a good point that there's a distinction between a pay TV operator and a telecoms operator. But I think the next level we see now is through the super aggregation model, it's more important that users can find what they want to watch. And that, going back to this distinction between pay and telecom operator, I think the pay TV operator is a little bit better and more advanced when it comes to metadata and recommendation and analytics. And I think that that's something you need really to understand if you want to be that in that aggregator model and be the hub to all of this content.
So do you think there's a difference between the UX that a telco would have to have, because TV's maybe not so important for them, and what a paid TV operator that totally relies on content and being the super aggregator has?
I don't think they need another UX, but I think you need to have much more deeper in breadth and understanding what it means to handle metadata and what you're getting yourself into. If you want to be in this aggregation model, because it's not connecting, having a platform and the customer turns on a TV and then you have the different applications. You really have to understand how this is linked and how you make that as a great experience. And that's usually it's a question of resources and not so much of not to understand the complexity. I think it's more the availability of resources that really manage these platforms.
Yeah.
Actually, for me, it's not only about the technical details, but you have also a lot of commercial stuff and negotiations to happen.
Yeah.
First, like if you are dealing with a Samsung or LG, where are you when people basically switch on the TV? Where are you? Are you in the first row, or are you somewhere kind of hidden? That's number one. Then when you deal with the platform like Netflix and Disney Plus, you have tough discussions about whether or not when you launch the app, is it within your app, or do you have to exit? When you come back, do you come back into your app? So, and this is really commercial discussions. So there are also a lot of the aspects of the user experience which would be depending upon and relying upon this commercial discussion that you're having with the OEM, the TV manufacturers, and also the different platforms.
Yeah.
But it speaks for the operator television set, right? So you take pretty much the control that you have on a set-top box onto a big screen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you build your own, you can choose what you do, but
Right.
if we're talking about partnerships at this point, aren't we? So, Chem, I mean, you've got Android TV operator tier set-top boxes as well. It seems obvious, although, you know, Android haven't said anything about getting involved in this market, but it seems like a bit of a no-brainer that they would do an operator tier for televisions. And if they came to you and said, okay, we're doing it, would that be of interest?
I think, basically when we have Android TV set-top boxes in some of our geographies, we very much want to control the experience, which goes back to the operator tier and basically have having our own UI and UX. And I guess, on Android TV powered smart TVs, we would like to have the same somehow through the app, or if we were to have a kind of, because you have a lot of kind of OEMs which are relying on Google basically to negotiate with you because they are too small and they don't have the right resources. So if they were a kind of like, Android TV, smart TV as such, and getting into discussions with them, we would like, the same way we discussed, having kind of the operators popping up as number one, we would like to have the same kind of experience.
Yeah, okay. Alejandro, are you actually sort of talking to anybody about this market at the moment? Are you sort of looking at doing it seriously?
Yeah, we are. So we are testing the waters a little bit in this area. So we are talking to a manufacturer in this area. So I think it's. So as we were discussing the Android TV operator tier model, I think the model on if you are talking to a retailer TV is slightly different, because with a set-top box we have full control on the whole ecosystem. If you are discussing with a retail CE manufacturer, there are parts which you can control, but there are still parts like, for instance, firmware updates. You are not talking anymore about a dedicated set-top box for KPN, but you are talking about a retail device which gets firmware updates. So you have to look at things like the whole life cycle. So how is it going to look like? How is going to be the discoverability of the app? How is it going to be the unboxing experience? How long is that device going to be in the markets? So yeah, I think these are all things that are new to us. So we are now in the process of having this discussion and looking into these topics in more detail.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, I guess a lot of that though is very similar to a set-top box. If you were owning, the relationship with the OEM for the TV in a retail cell was that you owned the stack and the software within that. It would be very similar to your set-top box experience. It's just, I guess there's some more complexity to the TV, setup, settings, etc. But ultimately, it's just some software that's on another device rather than being a set-top box as a TV. So I guess there are ways of cutting it, I guess.
Yeah. So Lennart, just tell us a bit more about your relationship with the TV makers. You said it's a win-win. You actually do fast partnerships with some, don't you? Is that right? You do partnerships with some of them on fast channels? Is that correct?
No, yeah, not yeah. So yes, it is correct. It's not a real partnership with the fast channels. We are able to integrate some of the fast channels into our EPG guide. So this was, for example, on Samsung, we have some fast channels which can be directly accessed from the EPG guide. But yeah, in general, of course, also for us, we need a contract with the manufacturers for negotiating timelines, market launches. We have marketing support for them and so on. This is the usual stuff for a good partnership. You need, of course, contracts and this.
Do you get involved in retail at all?
Yes, we are involved in retail. You mean, so again, we don't have any own TV sets or own setup boxes, but we have an own team which is heavily supporting the retail, heavily supporting especially the marketing of HD+ in the retail stores. So if an end customer goes into a big electronic market in Germany, there will be informations about HD+ directly to the TV set that support that. We have, of course, also our vouchers are directly in the retail available. If you want to prolong, you can put it from the retail. So there is a strong relationship between HD+ and the retail market.
Okay, but the ownership of the retail relationship is the TV makers, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We don't. Yeah, it is the TV makers who bring the devices into the retail stores, set the price for sure, and so on. So this is not at all. Again, we are not really. We are just a value-added service on top of the TV, on top of the linear services, where our product sits, where our platform sits, but the rest is still the TV manufacturer for sure.
Okay. And Peter, I think I half interrupted you. I mean, we were going to talk about some of the practicalities of how you actually implement this. So just talk us through how you do this, what you really have to think about in terms of implementing it, and you know, especially if you've already got set-top boxes, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends if you're. You know, there are many ways, I guess, to deliver a TV solution as an operator. You know, whether you want to just co-brand an OEM device, and have your name there, or whether you want to take more of an ownership of the middleware, or whether you want to develop the whole product from scratch. I think there's multiple ways to crack the nut. I think one of the key things, though, is if you are going to try to own the platform, then it's bringing on the applications, it's getting the porting all of the must-have apps that everybody wants to see on their platform, and making sure that they are supported in the long term, having a strategy that whatever operating system you choose gives you access to those applications and for the long run, because you are more in control and you have far more ownership. I mean, we've developed a system to allow AOSP, Android applications to run in any Linux environment or in an RDK environment, which means you have that breadth of applications across whatever platform you choose. And I think that's the kind of thing you need to be looking at is, how are you going to support this? Let alone the relationships with the OEMs, with the retail chain and everything else, which is beyond my scope, I have to admit.
Okay, but if, let's suppose you've got an RDK set-top box already, and you now want to maybe do your own TV, can you just bring everything you've already developed for the set-top into the television environment? Is that easily done?
I think there is a lot of reuse. I mean, I think you've seen that with the announcements around Entertainment OS today. The Entertainment OS is the same OS that's used in a stream box as used in a glass TV. So yes, there is additions, there's changes, but ultimately underlying it's the same operating system. Yeah.
Annette, who do you think would get involved in the OS market for this? I mean, can we expect other TV OSs to start offering their OS as the basis to put a launcher application on top of?
I guess if I would be an operator, I would try to get my current OS onto the screen, right? I've already invested in connecting and building all the APIs to get all of the partners into an aggregation model. So I'm a large telco, I would probably try to get that on a TV screen, right? So I don't think you need to start from scratch, right?
No.
Okay. And the other question you had is also economy of scale game, right? So if you are a large operator, then it probably makes more sense to think about having a mixed mode of a strategy and having a TV set as well as a set-top box, going both ways, right? I think it really depends on your demographics and how you segment your customer base. But I think you always should control the UX and UI, never regardless if it's a dongle or it is a TV screen.
Yeah. So Peter, on that quickly, if I'm already using RDK or I've chosen AOSP for my set-top. Would I naturally just follow that through onto the television set? Would I look for somebody who would agree to develop in that area?
I think it's a logical way of reusing what you've already put a lot of effort into. It does make a lot of sense. I certainly wouldn't suggest you have a completely different operating system for your TV from your set-top. I think you've then got the classic question of how do you manage your applications, how do you manage your support, updates, engineering. It's just a no-brainer, I guess.
Okay. And Alejandro, I didn't ask you, but would you consider the custom build Sky Glass model? Or I think Annette said you have to be quite big for that, or Peter did. Is KPN big enough to do that?
Yeah, I don't think so, to be honest. So yeah, we operate in the Netherlands, so we are a local operator. I don't think we have the scale to follow that model. We just saw that there is a lot of cost, a lot of effort involved in putting such a concept together. So I think in our case it would be rather more partnering with retail TV manufacturers in our case to reach the set-top box-less approach.
Okay. And Lennart, your application, HbbTV OpApp, is that portable to any television set? Is there any OS out there that it couldn't be used on?
No, as long as the TV manufacturers support HbbTV, and usually everyone already did it for Germany, and then on top they need to integrate the HbbTV operator application profile. We have also profiled it a bit, so we don't need any API which is defined in HbbTV, but I don't see any issue with any operating system, because we are on that high abstraction level already with HbbTV that we don't need any functions of the operating system for our application.
Okay. So that's worked very smoothly for you across all the different OSs that you work with?
Yeah, so smoothly.
I was about to say you're lucky.
So, of course, we have an own CE team which takes care of, every year we get lots of new TV models where we test the application. There are, of course, side effects when the TV manufacturers launch new models with new chipsets and so on. So I would say smoothly is a bit too far, but it is already a good standard, a good basement with HbbTV and operator application to start from, and to have at least one application running on them. But there's still, of course, work to test, to get interoperability, to tweak here and there. Yeah, this is, of course, still needed.
Okay. And Chem, just to make it more interesting, I'm going to assume that you will do this at some point. So, what do you think?
You do assume. I didn't say anything.
No.
To be very clear.
No, there's no suggestion you might, but just to be interesting, what would you consider the challenges? So, if you did look at this, what would you look at as the main challenges I need to kind of get my head around?
I guess it's market reach. I mean, today, if I look at, we have different geographies, and obviously our market share is not the same. But if I look at the French market, for instance, about the penetration of IPTV is like 65%, and we have a market share which is like 38, I think. So you make the math. So that means that like 1/4 of French households are actually consuming TV using our set-top box or alternative modes like the app on the Smart TV. So we really need to find a way to reach a lot of people. So how can we get that reach? Which means challenges like distribution, updates, and firmware, and making sure that not only we deliver the experience, but if there is a relationship with an OEM, we also need to make sure that everything is synchronized somehow. So the life cycle of the device. Actually, one point which was popping up to my mind when we were having the discussion, which is also, I mean, we have made very strong commitments to carbon neutrality by 2040. Yeah. And I can tell you that the CO2 impact of a big TV screen is not at all the one of a set-top box. I own the set-top box, so today when I make the calculations, I take into account the cost of the CO2 emissions for the set-top box. If I were to distribute under my brand a TV, I have to take that into account too, which makes a significant difference.
Okay. That goes onto your green account.
Yeah, so life cycle becomes very critical, because how long are you going to be able to sustain the TV and make sure that it's there? So there are also kind of other types of questions that you need to take into account when you get into this kind of business. But to make a long story short, rich and keeping up with the pace of evolution, innovation, and the life cycle of the device and the software.
I would agree with you. I think the other interesting thing is the opportunity to simplify the end user's ability to access your content. One remote control, one screen, no set-top box. It just makes life easier for the end consumer. And I think that's quite an important factor.
Yes.
Now, Lennart, you don't have any branding on the hardware, do you?
Sorry?
You don't have any branding on the hardware, not even the remote control?
No,
Okay.
no brand, no.
So you're happy with that, but the guide button goes into your guide,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah,
So we are
okay.
just happy with the branding and the application. Of course, we have collaborations with the manufacturers. They can make us on the packaging, and as I said, in the retail stores, we can put there some marketing material besides the TV, but we don't have any brand on the TV or on the remote control.
No. Alejandro, would you be happy with the same situation, or would you expect KPN to get some branding on the hardware somewhere?
Yeah, that's a good question because in our case, if we are going to partner with a retail CE device, so there is no KPN branding at all. So it's a retail CE branding on the TV and on the remote control. Nowadays, we have with the set-top box operator tier, we have our own remote control, so the user knows how to use it. It's always the same. If we are going to work with different TV manufacturers, everybody has their own remote control. So it's going to be, I think, challenging. It can become confusing for a user. There is also a lot of big relationship between the remote control and the UI. So if we are providing the UI, how is that going to work with different types of remote controls from different manufacturers? So I think as KPN, we should need to have at least some kind of visibility, some kind of control, minimum requirements on the remote control, like set of keys that need to be mapped to the UI in order to ensure a good navigation, in order to ensure that the user can always find the operator UI using the retailer remote control.
Okay. And one interesting commercial challenge, and Anette, perhaps you can answer this first. What happens if you go to market with a television set and a content relationship, which is kind of tied into the TV? So you subscribe to the content service and maybe you get the TV either on a monthly contract or it's very tied in some way. And then somebody stops subscribing to the content. So whose TV is it then? Who's looking after it for the next 10 years?
What I learned from the Sky example, but also from the Foxtel example, is that the TV in the end will be owned by the customer, right? So, and then probably you have to have a default operating system that allows you to watch linear television and allows you to access an app store or apps that you would like to continue watching, but individually where you subscribe directly to. We haven't seen any kind of end of life for these developments yet, right? So I think Sky Glass is now in the market for 2.5, 3 years. Yeah. So there's the first customers will probably come end of life 2024. And we'll see how many will continue the services. I think then we will see the first data of these kind of use cases. But usually, I mean, if you subscribed from a set-top box with a TV, an IPTV or a cable operator, you usually sign up for a 2-year contract, right? And then you renew.
Yeah.
Right. I guess the same will happen to customers who have subscribed through their television. And I think the Hubble example, but also this Foxtel and the Sky example, it works because it is an operator-branded device, right? Yeah. It's not a Samsung or Sky bought you by Samsung or by Panasonic or.
Okay, so do we assume? I mean, anyone can answer this. Do we assume that it will? There's got to be a base layer maintenance of the television afterwards. But is that the operator responsible for that, or does the TV maker kind of take it over if it's a retail partnership?
I think that depends on the relationship you have with the OEM and what you negotiate as part of your support. I mean, an argument from an operator perspective could be that you have a captive audience. That person was a subscriber to your service. They have their TV, they have the service. You are in their living room still. You can still potentially upsell and use them to promote towards them. Or you could say, fine, I'm just going to do my deal. I'm going to default back to the OEM's default user experience, which has the applications in live TV that you can have as a base television. Okay. I guess there's choices to make.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to open up to the floor in a couple of minutes, so if you've got questions, get them ready. Quick one for you, Chem. Similar sort of thing, customer care. If the television comes to the end of life, are you still going to be getting telephone calls 10 years from now because the TV you put in the market, you haven't had a content relationship for 7 of them, but you're still getting the customer care calls?
So I guess I have to come back in 10 years to give you the answer. I don't know. Like Annette said, these are new models, so it's difficult to assess exactly what's going to happen. What's for sure is that if we don't have a commercial relationship with the customer after like 3-4 years, and he or she has still like the smart TV in his living room, we would like to avoid him calling us. Because obviously customer care costs are quite heavy. So we need to find the right relationship with the OEM. So okay, if they stop the relationship with us, then basically we direct them to you, or if you want us to keep the relationship in some way or form, we do level 1 support, and maybe you do level 2 or whatever. But for sure, we want to avoid people calling us and calling us for asking questions that are not relevant to us, which happens quite a lot, because one of the few numbers that people know and they feel like if there is any problem or question in the digital world, I call my ISP, and hopefully I'll get an answer, because you can always try to find a Google or Facebook phone number to call. I tried. I'm still struggling. So we need obviously to avoid just having calls that are not relevant.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Do we have any questions? Okay. Well, while we're waiting, I'll just ask Lennart, because you are already doing this. So what happens to customer care calls?
Yeah, so we have an own customer care center, and of course also there sometimes we are reached if there is nothing with our app, with just the TV, then they refer of course to the corresponding TV manufacturer, and vice versa. We have a good communication with the TV manufacturers. If they have issues in their call centers regarding our application, they refer to us, and we take it over.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Terry?
Okay, so do we know any operator who has his HbbTV, like a pay TV operator as his HbbTV op besides HD+, like a telco cable operator?
I believe there's one in Vietnam, VTC Cab, I think. And
we have one.
I think there's one other, yeah.
Okay.
And then there's a Mexican operator that's doing a kind of an operator app. I'm not sure whether it's HbbTV, but
it's okay. Small country, not big deployments.
Yeah.
Or small operator. Sorry.
Well, I don't know how big VTVC is. They could be big for all I know.
Yeah. Okay, so it exists. So
They do exist.
You have to work on that.
Any more questions? Okay, so Lennart again, if somebody stops, they subscribe after their 6 months, then they stop, what happens in terms of the relationship between the consumer, you, and the retailer?
So there's, in terms of the UI, there's nothing happening for the end user except that they cannot watch anymore the HD+ channels, of course, if they stop the subscription. And we rely, he can still use us as the interface for example, for an EPG or for the channel list, because he has maybe ordered also the channel list inside the application to his favorites and so on. But of course, he can always deinstall us directly when he is not using us. We see also a behavior from our customers that there are lots of on and off customers, because due to our business model with this prepaid model, we see maybe the same like Netflix doing. Some customers, they are watching the 6 months for free, then they don't immediately prolong, but maybe afterwards, 2 weeks or 3 weeks afterwards, or 2 months afterwards, they want to get the services again. And that's why it is very good that then still our UI is there. He can immediately start watching again. And this is I would say, the on-off behavior of our customers that we see, which might be related to our business model or to our way how we interact with it.
Yeah, I guess it's that way to upsell potentially to a customer that's already been a customer before.
Yes.
I think it's also, I think this, I think we discussed it, we have a mixed mode of operations, different devices in the household, but I think it's a perfect way to upsell customers with other services, and I think that the big operators have proven that this is a great concept, not to leave the living room to the hyperscalers.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I think it's not either way, but it has to be a range, variety of devices and services.
Sorry, still got time for one more question if anyone's got a quick one, but then if not, I'll probably call time. Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Great.
Cheers. Thanks.